Yeah. Let's call the Policy Review Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Parker,
Here.
Mulvaney Henry,
Here.
and Cook.
Here.
So we've got the quorum. Okay, so we've talked about a couple of things generically, and this particular topic of residency, as I think everybody knows, the unified government has been visiting this issue lately. And starting, I think, maybe the summer of 2025, started visiting it in earnest again, right through the fall. I believe they are scheduled to continue and take up the issue next Thursday, the 5th.
I believe it's maybe the
pushed.
16th or the 19th.
19. Pushed another 2. Yeah.
Didn't know. But at any rate, we have our own separate policy, and I think it generally matches what the unified government is. I don't really know what theirs is, but I thought the time was right to revisit this policy. This is my 7th year on the board, and we visited it once a long time ago, and we've never visited it again. So I think as a board, it's probably past time we should visit it. And so have asked Jeremy and the team to put together a presentation for us to take up before the policy committee meeting, and then likely decide whether or not, we want to move forward and take this to the full board for a further discussion.
So with that,
I have one
if I
question
may,
real quick. We're not required to follow UG policy.
We are not. We have our own separate policy
even
that was
though the
adopted
agency-
apparently in 1983.
Parallels it, but yeah,
Yeah,
isn't dependent on
Just
it.
making sure.
That's right.
so one of the things we try to do, and Dennis is here, Ashley's here, they deal with obviously all the recruiting and the different things. But since this has become a topic, we decided to try to pull some actual information together that was, data driven information, not feeling driven information. And so you're going to see that here. We all kind of do have our opinions, and we'll give them if you'd like, but I think the data will speak for itself. But to Chase's point a minute ago, so 1983, the board adopted its own residency requirement. And they did that because at that time, the city was before the unification. They were trying to do it for whatever the reasons are. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different things, but the board here decided they wanted to adopt their own so that they didn't have to fall under that one. So they did that in 1983. And so before we jump into that data, that is in the personnel code, that history is there. And the reason I bring it up is we probably should remove it, because at minimum, you're going to want to remove some of this language because it talks about people that were hired prior to 1983. And as we sit here today, our most senior team member was hired in 1987. So this grandfather language that's in the personnel code is not even applicable to BPU anymore. So with that said, I think Dennis's team has given personnel codes. Is that what that is? It's on page 9.
And the policy,
Right.
handbook policy.
So if you look down on paragraph 3, that's where I'm talking about this grandfathered deal on page 9, that we can deal with that later or whatever. But I wanted to bring your attention to that, the date when all this happened, and so here we are today. The policies, other than that, between the personnel code, which is really the board owns that. Other than that one paragraph, this language and the language in the employee handbook, which is what's owned by my role and the executive team, that the language, with the exception of that 3rd paragraph, is the same. And if you have that book, it starts on page 11.
You guys have the policy. Yeah.
Yes. So if we could jump into the presentation, Rob, if you would go on to the next slide.
Yeah, the clickers.
Oh, sorry, Rob.
No, I can drive.
So, here's sort of, I think the issues that surround sort of the policy today, right, is we recruit for a ton of different professional, skilled craft and labor type personnel. But our market is really the entire metro. It's not just other utility companies or other construction companies or other electric companies, because there's a lot of professional people that we have here. And Ashley would, I think, back me up to say, when we need an engineer, we just don't go get them from another power company, or we don't just go get them from another XYZ company. We have this whole metro and all of the industry here that we can contend with. And that the projections that we'll see in the next couple of slides are showing that this gap or this demand is growing. And there's just this jurisdictional thing is really what is at the center of all of the, in our mind, the issues or the challenges that we have. So slide 3, just a little snapshot of the highlights of the environment. We have that. So we do, this is something that Karen is here from HR. Karen about this 7 months, but we do, we're required to comply with the policies that we have, and we have a number of people that, are currently under our timeframes and different parts and processes. I mean, some of them are in the first month, some of them are in an extension period, and the policy allows for that. So, here's a little bit of these statistics that we got. They're not BPU statistics, they're from Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so you can see, we talk about the growth outlook over the 10-year period, and then the actual openings each year. And I don't know, Ashley digs into this a lot more than I do. So I don't know if you have other highlights relative to this slide that you want to talk about.
So this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Every, I think, 2 years, we'll do a statistics on what job outlooks. And that is for talent, along with organizations to plan for future talent. And so if you look, some of these are already hard to fill positions. So we really struggle with finding talent. Sometimes we have to go outside and do like a nationwide search because it's hard to get people to move 20 minutes down the street. So with that, if you look, these are positions we already struggle with. And when it says the line workers, that's already journey level line workers. So you can see that we're already struggling, but the job outlook for those, 7% for the engineers and the power line, and then information security analysts, 29%, and developers are 15%. So we're already struggling today with placing these positions. So it's just the job outlook is more demand in this metro area, along with nationwide, going forward in the next 10 years. And so that's what kind of the summary of this workforce snapshot means.
So the percentage of means 7% of people looking for a job.
7% growth. So in where
The demand for this position.
Yeah, so
Oh,
they're gonna be more of these people needed.
Yeah.
So almost 30% more information security.
Yeah. So 7% is also identified as a high demand position too. So that is something that, colleges, trade schools, high schools, they look at that, and that's where we want to focus kids to go to and future talent, those high demand roles. So we're sitting here today already struggling with filling some of these roles, but 10 years from now, there's going to be 7% more jobs.
How many openings do we have in each of these categories currently?
Currently with the line workers, we're vacant.
We have 12, we're down 12.
12, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then
It's just under, for those guys, for that classification, it's about 30%.
Yeah, 30% vacancy rate.
The line crews.
yeah. And developers, we currently have 2 on our job bid board. and information security analyst. And this is actually the individual that secures our control center. So we're looking for one right now. Just started that search. Usually it takes a while. And then we have engineer right now. We are fully staffed, but we have come with like hiring entry-level engineers and developing them up to get those positions filled.
So some of these are a little bit repetitive here, but when you talk about just relative to Kansas and then here also in the metro, you can see how those actual numbers trickle down into our specific area that we try to recruit from and get people to start in a timely, efficient manner. But those numbers are still high in that 6% range, 600, 590 workers is, when you go across to Union Hall, and I think their membership is about 2,200 linemen, something like that. So you can see from a statistical standpoint, it's a really big part of the metro population of that skill group. So a few years back, probably as long as Ashley's been doing it here, but we've been tracking the distribution of our applicants, where they're coming from, what, gives us an indication of plan for what we might have to plan for on the things that we offer when we onboard people when it comes to, relocation assistance or, the other things that we're going to have to plan for to track the residency compliance and all those kinds of things. So on the left is her sort of the more challenging roles. And then you can see where we're getting our applicant from. So out of all those jobs that she's tracked here, only 43% of the applicants are actually already in Wyandotte County. That doesn't mean that those are qualified applicants.
Yeah,
right? That's just anybody that applied that
period.
lives here. They may not even meet any of the qualifications for those jobs, but they're lived here applicant. And the same with 57% of the applicants come from outside of Wyandotte County, which is a good thing, right? People are interested in what's going on over here and maybe coming to work over here. So I think there's a little bit of positive in that, not, that we're able to attract some of those folks and get them here, but you'll see later that you actually lose them because of that too. So.
And we're talking a large pool, so we're looking at 694 applicants. Their total, so 393 were outside of Wyandotte County and 301 were within Wyandotte County. So it's just not 15 people we're looking at.
Do we have any sense of the outside Wyandotte County, how many of those are in the metro versus, nationwide folks or?
Well, we have a lot of presence on LinkedIn, so we are getting some nationwide. We don't track and exactly where they're coming from. The questions, do you live in Wyandotte County, is the actual question, yes or no. So.
Do you guys have data on, over the last, just say 10 years, I don't know, what we have spent on relocation costs? I'm sure the data can be had.
We can gather it, but
I'd be interested.
I think the other thing too is probably over that time is relocation costs, but do you want to see what we spent on firms too that we've had to pay to attract them?
Mm-hmm.
well, and here's the other thing is, so if you live inside of 50 miles and you relocate to Wyandotte County, you get nothing. Okay, we have a recent policy change that's gonna, if we don't change this, we will give people some reimbursement, but there's nothing. And so when you look at the true cost, it's really not there.
Yeah. So if you're an applicant who's across a county line or state line who would have to move and all that goes into that, that's just out of pocket.
And, we have a current employee that just had to relocate or is going to relocate, but she's 5 blocks away from the county line.
But we do provide assistance outside of that range. We're again looking at the policy, but kind of depending on what shakes out here, we may not have to, but there would be Possibly some savings there, should
Mhm.
something happen. So this slide is people who made it through all of the screening. They had checked that they were willing to relocate. They met all of the other benchmarks, and we were going to either interview them, or maybe we already interviewed some of them. But they met all the initial benchmarks, and then after the fact said, no, you know what, never mind. And so, all y'all know how much time it takes to filter those things, set up the meetings, have the conversations, perform the interview, maybe it's a site visit, tour, and different things or whatever. And then you still turn around and you lose those candidates, even though they technically told you they were interested in moving, and later they didn't. So 2026 year to date, 2 of them already that, here, we're not even through the second month. So, and then a little bit about, kind of what it costs. Just, I think the state of national term.
Well, yeah, yes.
On the left side.
Yeah, and it's a national standard, the 1 times your annual salary for non-management and 2 times your annual salary for management. And you see below that, the activities that go into that cost when they come up with this standard that we use in human resources. And then the next the slide that, or part of the presentation that you'll see is the actual numbers. So in the last 5 years, we've had 11 people that we've had to replace that left because of residency. It costs us $1.67 million to do that. You throw on top of that, 2 of these employees came through our apprenticeship program, which is $355,000 of money we put into that 4 to 5 year program. 710,000, and then you get a total of 2.38 million over the last 5 years that we've had walk out the door. And then the other startling number is also, and this is very conservative, since 2010, 19 linemen have left due to residency at a cost of $2.85 million in replacement costs.
When we talk about leaving due to residency, I'm assuming that means took the job probably with a residence somewhere else, maybe with the intent of moving within the 12 months, maybe not, but then hit that limit.
And then
Okay.
left, yeah.
Some of the linemen will ebb and flow too with, it depending on what the work is in the metro. If certain work picks up and the union hall is offering, the contractors are offering, different levels of overtime or guaranteed 60-hour weeks, these kinds of things, paying per diems. I mean, some of them will come over here and work when that stuff isn't going on, and they'll just leave and go back when it does. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but we take some of them multiple times because we need the help.
Right.
And we know we're going to get our 12 months. They're going to ask for an extension. We're going to give the extension. They're going to get to the end of the extension and they're going to say, hey, I'm not moving. No, right, thanks. And we'll see you again in 18 months. But so we go through a little bit of that cycle too as the economy does its thing and work in the metro sort of ebbs and flows.
But are these specific people that have stated they left because of the residency requirement? And are we doing exit surveys? Is that how we get that information?
Yes. That, and we know also from investigations that we've conducted, things of that nature. So we track our employees that haven't moved into the county, and then we give them, heads up, hey, you're coming up on your 1 year, what's going on? And they may say, well, I'm done. My wife told me I'm not moving. So whatever the reason might be.
Then we have some that don't, and they, we spend the time, I think there's some information in some of the handouts that, end up going, we wind up over across the street in court, or we go somewhere and it becomes costly. We hire the investigators, and Karen is trying to track people down, and hey, it's, you're in 11 months, you're in 12 months, you're in, we'll give you an extension to 18 months. If people get through that and they change a name or they use a different address, we end up finding them and we have to terminate them or, let them resign, whatever it is. and then I guess, I'm not sure what the next slide is.
It's just contract agency cost.
Ideal quitter, there you go. So the other thing that is when we do have roles that we can't go and leave vacant, we rely on managing relationships with contract firms, staffing firms. And they don't just find people and let us use them for free. So, that usually has some multiplier on it. In that 25 to 40% range. I think one of the things that also it's kind of hurts the morale and different things in the departments. So most of the time, those contractors aren't living here either, right? And so you're filling a role, you're having to get a contractor, and that contractor's coming from Kansas City, Missouri, or Overland Park, or whatever it might be. But then they're sitting there working right next to the folks that are complying, and you just kind of get a natural spoil in the atmosphere. But
So does that include like Capital Electric?
Capital Electric, yeah, so they would be like anybody else. So they're gonna build the rate that's gonna be their hourly rate that they have to pay, per their contract. Then they're gonna put their burden rate, which is all of that on there. Then they're gonna put whatever their profit margin is on there.
Right.
So whether it be 3%, 6%, 7%. You get the adders on there. And then when we use people like that, we pay rent for their equipment. So trucks, certain tools, trailers, all that kind of thing, and paying a premium for.
Go to the
Oh, yeah, there you go. I get started working. So there's a little bit about that feedback that we captured through the exit interviews, and some of the exit interviews are planned and formal and productive, and some of them are unplanned, so they're not as productive. But there's a little bit of a snapshot about sort of, what we hear repetitively from folks. And, I think it's interesting when you look at the right side there is the school transitions and different programs that are available in the districts around here. We actually had, we had a candidate that came up here, and it was really surprising. He took the time to do a lot of research on the school board meeting. They had a child with special needs, so they checked out the Children's Mercy Hospital and some other things. And what it boiled down to at the end of the day, they're like, look, we just can't find a home that fits our needs near the services and the community offerings we need. Well, that stuff's all completely out of our control, right? We can't go over and meet with the unified government, tell them they need to build different parks and do different things in different manners or whatever. But had that person have been able to find that neighborhood still within, reasonable range here, and take advantage of the specialized hospital and the specialized care that they could get in this metro, they weren't getting in a smaller town. So I thought that was an interesting story. And we do, like, the 12-month time frame. I know I've referenced it a couple of times. We do grant folks extensions. And then we do have occasionally, not very often at all, but we'll have some need for some employees had some life-altering event to need some kind of temporary arrangement for a period. We had a person at the service center a few years ago that had a house fire. And because of dealing with their insurance and whatever like that, where the insurance was going to pay and put them up was outside of the service territory. So we worked with that person to have to do that. And, it's not, they were already in this stressful point of their life, and then to have to worry about how to deal with their job was just a little bit extra burden on them. And lastly, this is really, I usually get the back end of all of this, and this is really usually Dennis, Karen, and Ashley dealing with all of these things. So I'll let Dennis kick through this.
Sure. So, one of the things our people deal with is, when you're public facing in your role, you may not make people extremely happy. And when you're residing in the same county or you have to reside in the same location. Sometimes it's tough when you run into them when you're eating dinner and you're out with your family and those kinds of things. So it makes it a little bit tough.
1 second. Have you gotten feedback from employees that has happened?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
multiple times.
Some of the.
And
That would be better.
How do you document that?
well, if it's a threat,
We've got one going on now.
yeah, we've got a police report filed right now. We have a customer that has threatened our customer service people. I know where you live. Come get you. That kind of stuff. And so we filed just this yesterday, a police report on that. We have it happen out in the community as well. It's very uncomfortable for people if you're having dinner with your family. I don't know, in our situation, you're disciplining an employee and then they come up and want to talk shop, not that they're going to threaten you or anything, but hey, this is my time away that I really don't want to deal with it. So when you're in that community and you're disciplining people or you're giving people bad news, whatever it might be, it's a little bit tougher. So that's one of the
But-
issues.
And maybe I'm not being a little as clear on the question. When you document it, can you go and pull that report tomorrow of an employee coming and saying XYZ happened, they threatened me? And then is this happening once a week, once a month,
So
3 times a year? That's what I'm more specific here. I understand that this is obviously an issue.
Yeah.
But is it a huge issue? Small issue?
it's a smaller issue. However, the threats are documented. So, we've had 2 in the last year that we've had the police department have to go out in the community and deal with a resident that's made threats. I don't know if you remember our previous general manager. He had that issue arise as well.
I had one last year.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
right. I forgot. You had one last year as well.
Yeah.
So, but those are threats. The other situations are just very uncomfortable and they're not documented.
I think that goes to the data that we needed to collect,
Okay, yeah, and we can
in
do
my
that.
opinion.
These kinds of policies and when you look at the general data that we deal with from an HR perspective, people today in particular, our younger employees want more freedom, want the ability to live where I want to live and, don't tell me that I want more time off and those kinds of things. So it's not real congruent to a residency policy. Some of the recruitment compliance activities that we're talking about with regard to, these are additional costs, relocation incentives that we have to pay out. Certainly, some of those are not avoidable when somebody lives out of town, but some of them are internally. Temporary housing, that's a part of our relocation policy. If you are from out of town, we're going to put you up as well for a period of time. Competitive wages. So when you're recruiting somebody that's going to move into Wyandotte County, one of the first things that they're going to say is, look, this is going to cost me blank amount of dollars to move. I'm going to need this much more money than what you're offering. So wage, paid time off, when you look at a lineman that's relocating into Wyandotte County, those guys get in the current contract, they get 1 week of time paid or paid vacation for their first 2 years. And so they're taking their personal time to try to move into Wyandotte County. So, people, whether it's them or other folks, are asking for more paid time off. I got to take 2 days to move and I don't have any time built up. They're not real happy about that. And so, those are things we have to do to offset that relocation requirement. We spend a lot of time validating people's residences, verifying that they are actually living where they say that they're living. And when we get complaints, we absolutely follow up on every one of those. We currently have 14 relocations that we're tracking and a couple of investigations going on right now. So Karen, myself, Ashley spend a significant amount of time every month tracking that stuff, reaching out to employees, ensuring that they're updating us where they're supposed to. And then when we have a complaint, sometimes we have to use an outside investigator as well.
And then the morale within the team is these complaints are coming in. We're not looking for them. So the morale of the residency is if I have to do it, you have to do it. So that if someone feels that somebody has broken the policy, like a current employee, we're just really focusing on new hires, but current employees will get reported too because it's such a focus. And you will have to investigate tenured employees that sometimes there has been times where we've had to take action on tenured employees because they were reported not living in the county. And so it's not on talent wise, but also it affects our overall talent too, our tenured talent. And so it's the morale of them reporting and those things to us. So
Yeah, we do have some documentation with regard to how much money we spend doing some of this stuff.
But that's not eliminated if we go to a radius. The people will still complain about you being at the 29th mile of radius, or maybe it's 30.1.
Right. Well,
Have we had any conversations with other utilities where there is a mile radius? I know it's coming up.
Yeah.
But I didn't know
So
on this specific, yeah.
that's correct. What we have found, and you can see sort of quickly here, we did put out a survey on APT, and the responses have been just slower coming in or to aggregate. But I spoke with Dwayne Falk down at City Utilities this Monday, I guess. And asked him about theirs. They're the larger municipal in Missouri, so they're more of our comparable. And his information, and we're going to trade CBAs and different things, but they have a response time based. So they use an hour, which ironically, if you look in the employee handbook, that's what it says, is you have an hour here. So that sort of matches our employee handbook, just not this policy. And then KPP, who is a power agency, but manages different systems for different cities in Kansas, says the same thing. They all have some kind of response time focused thing, but nothing to do with the city. What is more common, I guess, is for like city administrators, obviously the electeds, that kind of thing. Two different Wisconsin municipal providers that I also spoke with last or Monday, same thing. They both said they had to live within the county or city limit, whatever it was, but that all of the rest of their team just had the response time things. And so that's sort of what we're seeing. And it makes sense from a service standpoint, like we provide a service, they provide a service. And so you want people to come in here and, deal with disturbances and issues in a timely manner. So I think that, if you were to ask me, that would be, I don't like the idea of an edit going to like a mile radius thing. I think it's, you could be well within a mile radius, but because you don't have good highway access, it might take you an hour and a half to get here or something,
If we did default to response time, my assumption, but correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that wouldn't be something that we would be, for lack of better term, policing as much as we have to do the current policy. It would just be if you're failing to respond in time, then that becomes an issue, less a matter of we've put your address in Google Maps and it says 61 minutes and not 59.
That's exactly right. And
There's rules and
well, and the other thing that found in our research is that people don't want to drive more than 20 minutes to work. So you're not going to find many people at all that would push that 60-minute time frame or something
Well, I
like
do
that, or
think
even
we-
a 30-mile.
When you look at the trades in particular, a lot of those folks are coming from the outer, more rural type areas. I mean, it's just, that's what they grow up doing and they don't get steered towards the IT career and this, that, and the other. But, I think that we do have a number of tools in place for supervisors to monitor that type of thing. The bargaining employees punch a clock. So we're gonna know if they're making it or not, and it's all an automated thing. It auto generates notifications to the supervisor that says, hey, they've met their limit. Here's this auto generated conduct memorandum, and there's a step process through taking care of that. And so a lot of those things are already being done,
Mhm.
right? But
Just write it into, you said there's tools to, other than Google Maps, because that could change daily, but taking, I'm assuming averages,
yeah,
but we could write that into the policy that we're using that tool.
somewhere in here, and it's in one of the, I don't know.
A lot of old
Right.
policies have like the pro, like the, what is it?
As the crow flies.
As the crow flies. So it's just you can measure that. So it takes no highway into access. It's just,
Yeah, we
Right.
can hand those out. It actually says that on Benton PUD, which is a lady that I'm on the RP3 board with. They're in Washington State, so they probably have, but theirs literally says they have this 20-mile requirement as the crow flies. I think what Delaney would tell you is wrong with this is it says for certain positions. It's not, it's sort of discriminatory, I guess, based on what the job is. I think when we've asked for legal guidance, we've been sort of, told to steer away from those kinds of things where you're picking groups that can do one thing and not the other. But there's also another policy that it's in this Greenville one, which is a separate PDF. We could print it off for you. But it says that you use Google Maps or something or some other applicable tool that recognizing like what you said is it's going to change when the highway changes or this, that, and the other. The interesting one is there's a utility company on here that provides their employees with a 6% residency incentive bonus. So they pay their people to live within, which is, I don't think anybody here would advocate for anything like that. So anyway, we've tried to do some research and not give you feeling-based things.
And there really aren't many organizations other than for emergency responders that have a residency requirement, period. So it's very rare that you see that, especially in municipal utilities.
I think when we sat down and kicked through all of everything that we wanted to organize for you today, sort of the last slide, that sentence on the left side is really this question we have to dig into to make a good decision is, is something like this the best, most effective way we think that we can meet our objectives. I know there's some other data requests that I know Rose asked for some monetary values. I want to make sure we capture exactly what we want.
Not want monetary values. What I wanted was, what I wanted was if we fashioned a policy that was, you mentioned earlier, somebody's at the policy director and above.
Oh,
What does it look like if it's manager and above? What does it look like if it's director and above?
yeah.
And so the entirety of the list that you guys have pulled together, which was supervisor and above for me, is 87 employees currently would not be allowed, if we went down to that level, would not be allowed to live outside Wyandotte County.
So this would be a question that we're all going to have to wrangle with, right, too, is if you push it too far, where are you limiting people that you really want to move, but they don't want to because of, right? So let's just say you push it all the way down to, I don't know, 3 or 4 levels down, whatever the title might be. Are you going to get somebody that's a really great performer and they're really, you have succession plans for them and you think they can be beneficial, but they say, I don't want to take any more opportunities because I don't want to fall into this other thing. I think that's one of the things we're going to have to try to struggle with internally is where do we recommend this thing land.
Inevitably,
If
if there is a cutoff, there's gonna be that cliff somewhere,
Yeah.
but how far through the chain does that go?
We already have a tough time filling the supervisor role because of that transition from overtime to salary. In some of our specialty positions from superintendent of the line department to our power plant supervisors. We are usually skipping, and the senior person is not bidding. It's going to be someone that's looking at the board, and they're like, it's going to be a while before I can be a lead
Yeah,
or a
but
senior.
Lose money.
So I'm going to skip. So my supervisor we would have to be, in some of our roles, we can't hire external supervisors. Like we have rarely one time.
I already struck out the supervisor.
Yeah, and I'm just
That doesn't make sense
supervisors,
in my head.
yeah, because we do struggle, and they're superintendents.
Which is really just 8 positions.
Yeah, they're.
So now you're down to 75 out of 400.
The front line,
70 employees.
Two, I think.
yeah.
I don't want employees that were budgeted for. How many do we have
Yeah,
to?
that's right.
Do we legit
I got-
502?
I got,
Yes.
yeah, I got that from payroll this
I have
morning.
20 something budget.
Yeah, we're running about.
It's actually what I got.
500 for the last 2 years, I think.
What I got from payroll this morning still included Steve Green. I think it said 505. And
He's not out till Sunday, right?
It's, yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's still on.
Yeah.
it's still got somebody else on it. I thought that would here. So I think it's like 502.
Keep calling.
Yeah, so 502.
It changes every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Might be short another one. But
That's the reasoning behind why we care if we exclude 75 people. I'm confused by it.
You have to stop it. I don't want the highest paid people in Wyandotte County, which are these people right here,
Okay,
generally, to not live
Understood.
here. And so that's where I'm coming from. That's why I asked, what is this?
is
list look
other
like?
than, our other utilities that we've spoken to about a vast majority of this information, are they also excluding their top people?
so, no. Yes. Some of them on this list back here had just their top person, just their city administrator. So like if it was a utility company, it was usually like me in the C-suite. But all of the city managers, including the one here, KCK, I believe it's in his contract, or at least he told me it's in his contract, that he has to live here. But no, to answer your question, no, it's limited. Even city utilities is larger than us, they only require their CEO. They're big, they do electric, water, gas, fiber, and
And I believe the city of Topeka, at one point did have directors, and they found that people were not applying for those jobs because they lived outside the city of Topeka. And so they said, hell with this, I'm not going to apply for this particular job. So they ended up lifting it, and went to I think a 30-mile radius or whatever it was for all jobs other than city administrator.
So all of this, I mean, I think that the data presented is clear, right? If it's just about the financial efficiency of a single organization, I feel like it, points to not having those restrictions. I also understand the initial thought behind it, which is whether the UG or BPU, like these are a lot of, the best jobs in the county, and we want folks living and investing in the county. And so it's weighing those two. So if you're cutting it at a certain point, you're trying to retain, whatever the best balance of those two is. I don't want to dismiss what I'm guessing is the initial rationale for creating these in the first place, but I tend to lean towards, again, what's the best bang for the buck for our ratepayers, right? And so if there are cost savings, whether if we're not doing contract, having to pay for contractors or all of the cost of policing, we're talking about marginal costs in the budget of this size, but there's real dollars there too. So I tend to lean to that side, but also, Rose, to your point, like if you can retain some of that, rationale originally and I think I'm trying to think too through the, part of our role is accountable to the people who send us here and what would the, median ratepayer slash voter one. I think they like the cost savings. I think some people are going to have feelings about some of the highest paid jobs in the county, living elsewhere. So I'm
The other thing
trying to find that balance for myself.
about that is, so like if you use lineman, that seems to be
Yeah.
sort of the thing, right? I would probably be able to get you really good data that shows that there's linemen making more than their director.
Sure.
And so if you say, hey, your director's got to stay here because your salary is this, but your linemen don't have to stay here and they're making more than that person, I don't know what happens then.
No, but the thing is, look, I mean, sometimes people choose career paths, sometimes career paths choose people, right? And I don't have any ability, in my role and what I do outside of here to go make overtime.
Right.
That's just not built into I'm always going to make less than the people who have the ability. I say it to you all the time. You make way more than I do. I think it's unfair, but every day, I mean, I get it. I mean,
Like one of your peers.
but you also, I mean, you have a genuine ability to do a whole hell of a lot more than I do,
I don't know about that.
based on your experience and your education. And so we do different things, right? And so while it may be unfortunate that a director doesn't make more than a lineman who's out doing, 18 storms a year, sorry about it.
I guess the
Go back on the pole then, I
point
say.
would be maybe we use the role based rather than the dollar based, right? When you make the argument, do it from the role base,
Sure.
not the dollar base. If that makes sense.
And that's
And wherever
Well, I
that.
think you guys are saying the same
It's not trying to
thing
get
on that,
to
right?
amount.
Right.
He was trying to get to, because I think there's a component of this also that is the leadership component.
Yeah.
That's,
And, I mean, I don't know how many more times I can say, literally the only reason I have to live here now is because of this position. But I have chosen to live here for a very long time.
and we have people that this group, when we first got together to start talking about pulling data together, and it's like, well, we're truly doing something to benefit somebody other than us. Like we know we are not going to be any kind of beneficiary of this policy change. I'm not leaving anyway. You've got a number of people that, Jaren's not leaving. Jaren's younger than I, but he's made this investment where he wants his kids to grow up and all the things. And so you have all those things that we know a lot of us weren't going to be able to take advantage of if something does happen. But when we do have a lot of talented people in our organization, one of them sitting in this room that pays for 2 houses, pays for 2 living arrangements to come here and work for us, and probably puts in a lot of time that he's not getting any overtime for. But those are the real benefits, is finding a way to attract and not only attract but keep and make things easier on the talent.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Getting back to this, hey, we give a 6% bonus, right? I wouldn't do that. But can we have 2 pay scales if you live in Wyandotte County or if you don't? I think the answer is no, we probably couldn't, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, on a talent, usually you're paying for your talent. I think that's why they get away with it, because they're doing a bonus.
Mhm.
So bonuses could be tied to different aspects, but when you're looking at compensation, you're compensating for the work that they do. It would be really,
I don't
know, it'd be very,
I don't
we
think,
The other
we
thing,
really would
like, I
get
don't know how we-
challenged on it.
know how we'd get that past.
The union would
You're right.
struggle with it too.
Right.
it's a give and take, Jeremy, it's give and take.
I do know, though, one of the things that had been brought up early on, and I think even 3-4 years ago, when we had this conversation with the other board during that COVID time, when we had the virtual meeting about it, was again, doing it for some, but not others. And I don't think that's a good idea. I think it creates more problems. Legal's also told us that's probably not a good idea.
Well, and to Ashley's point, I don't think that helps your morale situation, right? Because we're all kind of looking, oh, well, they can do it, but I get that. And you don't want to, cause that or.
I mean, the UG does it with their benefits. If you don't take their benefits, you get, what is it, like
The stipend.
a stipend? And so I'm assuming the 6% bonus might be like a stipend or some sort for living in the county. I mean, because maybe the risk are there because of like available,
Yeah.
and being able to count that. I don't know what their rationale was for that, but
I mean, to your point, it's got to go back to the ratepayer. I mean, if it makes sense, if we save a bunch of money all of a sudden to then spend it on bonuses, we're at the same spot that we are right now, really.
Yeah.
So
I really think future is what we need to be thinking about. I've been recruiting here for 13 years yesterday, and it's getting harder and harder. And we're getting those labor positions. When we go fill our entry-level positions, the recruiters, we look at local talent. We want to build up our local talent. So we're not talking about hiring outside of the county for telephone service reps or electric utility operators, pre-apprentice. We're talking about hiring skilled labor and our trades and professionals that are the backbone of this utility that keeps our network safe, keep our lights on, keep our power plant running. And that's what is the problem. It's not but you can only train so many linemen because we have a restriction. You have to have so many journeyman linemen. So we can't hire unlimited apprentice linemen because we can only have so many. So as our linemen get short, less apprentice we'll be able to have. And so you just really have to look at the future, and you look at those numbers of it's going to be more people in the market, it's only going to grow and get worse.
Not only that, so we have 15% of our organization that's eligible for retirement.
Yeah.
So 75 out of our basically 500 employees, and a number of those are in our electric operations. So 12% electric ops and electric production, almost 20%. So that's a scary thought as well, needing to replace those folks as they retire.
You asked for some follow-up, some costs. Remind me what it was.
The total amount paid out for relocation.
Oh, right.
you will.
Do you want over the past 5 years or 10 years?
And then another cost is we will do like this, look for security or a programmer. And as the recruiting team, because recruiting resources cost, their LinkedIn is not, you just don't get a post job and search candidates for free. It's very expensive.
Mhm.
And so we have to limit the number of search databases that we do. And so when we have to do a nationwide search, because we have called it pretty much a failed search. So we've had all those rejections, all that pre-screening, all these people are not, then we have to go to an agency. So we already sent our current time. The job is been vacant probably for months. Now we're going to go and find an agency because we're desperate and ask them to do a nationwide search. And you saw the price of a general manager. It's a lot less, but it's 50, 40, 30% of their salary, just depending on the demand.
And you
of
said
the
some
position.
agencies won't do it because of
And
our
we are
restaurants.
having some agencies that the searchers won't search for them because they're getting the same thing we are getting. So whenever the search team is on the phone doing the screenings, residency gets brought up, person's like, nope, I'm not going to do it.
Just as a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. So was a little bit when I came here 13 years ago, a little bit easier. Would you say when you were superintendent when I onboarded, and it was a little bit easier, but I would have to say as our professional talent changes and the demand changes, the market grows, there's more jobs here, more competitive than it was. It's getting really significantly harder.
Push it off as long as we can. Ashley talked about, the way we've implemented the intern program and bringing on the junior engineers and bringing them on earlier while workers are still here, keeping them for a couple of years. That's, you know, we've done that. We created the pre-apprentice lineman program. We bring those folks in and get them exposed to things. And then we move them right into the apprentice program, and we run in two different apprentice programs so that they're overlapping halfway through. But you get to a point where you can't keep up. You know, she mentioned the ratio of journeyman to apprentices we have to have, and that's a state labor thing. We could lose our right to run our apprenticeship if we run afoul of that. So there, you get to a point where you can't do any more with you're doing everything you can with what you have. And I know this is not an easy topic, but you know, to the point of we've scratched the surface a few times. Unified government's struggling with it. They're scratching it. It's a tough one, but I think it's one of the last levers we have to pull.
Well, and I think the last time that we discussed this in earnest, and it had to have been COVID year. You know, the general manager at that time concluded that despite the fact that this is a BPU board policy, this should be left to a public vote. And then we never spoke of it again. And look, somewhere along the line, a board of directors at this utility thought this was necessary in the early 80s when I was still in high school. And, you know, times they have changed. And I don't think I never thought it was relevant for a public vote. I'm not saying that I would be opposed to a public vote. I just can't do it just on the BPU policy. That doesn't work. Like, we can't put this on
We have the mechanism.
we don't.
Put an issue on the ballot.
So it never made sense to begin with, but, you know, we're here now, and I mean, I think at a minimum, the UG is gonna do what the UG is gonna do. And what I don't want to do, what I don't want us to be in a position of is create a bad environment for commissioners and the mayor. If we adopt something that, you know, potentially is, you know, not in alignment with what the UG is doing, do we have the authority to do it? Sure. But, you know, we're repairing a relationship right now. Jeremy and team has done, you know, a bunch of groundwork to do that. You don't want to get on the wrong side of the UG again. But I do think it's worth our full board discussing this because I don't know where others are on this issue.
I agree with you. I also don't want to just wait for them to mirror it exactly word for word.
Couldn't agree more because we have different needs,
Yes.
different needs.
David and I meet pretty much monthly at lunch, or he comes over here, I go over there.
David Haley? Sorry.
David Johnston, County Administrator. And, you know, I asked him, he was telling me they were having to come up with some data, whatever, and.
Kind of like this.
Yeah, kind of. I think it was a really big, they actually sent Dennis a copy of what they were trying to gather. I mean, I'm not gonna.
They had multiple.
The questions people have asked.
There's a lot of questions that came from
So
commissioners.
to that point is, he didn't know that our policy was separate, which, you know, why would he? He just.
Sure.
So I explained to him that it was separate, what I, you know, knew about how it came to be, and the fact that, you know, you as a board had jurisdiction over doing whatever you want to do with it, when you wanted to do things with it. And his, you know, sentiment was, well, that's your policy, not mine. I don't care. That doesn't mean that the commissioners don't have a different feeling that maybe, you know, you all could feel them out about that. The other thing I think that's worth being considered is, hey, our board made a decision in 1983 to have a policy, so they didn't fall under that one. Do you want to take that chance again? If they do change something, do you want to have it shoved over here, or do you want to be in control of yours and when it happens?
No, I completely understand that. What I'm saying, I mean, if anybody watched any of those meetings that were had, I mean, you had a significant number of first responders who showed up to those meetings. And what I don't want to do is, we need to have our own policy. I want to be clear about that, in my opinion. But what I don't want to do is put the commissioners and, in a bad position. And hey, BPU adopted it because we need a new lineman, right? We're 12 short, and these folks are out there with all their reasons for why they need it as well.
Yeah.
Right? They had folks with pitchforks at those meetings. And I mean, yeah.
We talked with leadership yesterday, and there won't be any pitchforks here. And I don't.
No, there won't be any pitchforks
I think it-
here because
I think it.
we know the sentiment from IBEW.
I think it sort of speaks to too that, like, in the days that a lot of us grew up under here in this county in the unions, and they were really, there was a lot of continuity, and there's not anymore. So that was the ironic thing to me, is how that's pulling apart and not keeping its cohesion.
It's not the same one I counted, Jeremy.
So. But at any rate, we're happy to provide any other data you might want or think of later. We'll send those costs out to, I'll take a look at that spreadsheet and see if I can take out of there anything so there might be something in there too, and I haven't seen what you struck. There might be jobs like a claims person and different things like that, struck out. That wouldn't be, they're in a frontline supervisor classification, but they're not really.
I took anything that said supervisor on it off.
Okay.
If you're wanting to look at it, is that the size of control. So if you have smaller departments, there's less, versus like a director of electric operations. I mean, they have quite a few people under them. So that's sometimes could be something when it comes to compliance, you want to have some rational reason why you're selecting it. So you could answer and have a strong, this is why we made the decision. Because I think that's some of the issue with the residency is when people ask, what was the real reason? And you get 4 or 5 different reasonings, and none of them are tracking. We want the tax dollars to stay here. Well, are people outside of our property tax, are we really shopping here? Is anyone even tracking that? Is the amount of money and the amount of homes really make up for the cost of recruiting and vacancies? Is it really balancing out? Those are the things I think are, when you look at this and you look at compliance, because usually compliance, there's a reason why. And what is the reason why for this residency? That's really trackable. And it's just adding layers. As a recruiter, we already have a ton of layers we have to go through to get talent. You have age, you have immigration status, you have all of these things that we have to layer off, and that just dwindles the talent pool lower, lower, lower. And then we get to a real low talent pool, and then we're like, one more thing, residency.
Well, and if you're in Bonner Springs, you're complying with the current residency requirement, but you're not a BPU customer. So, you can comply and still not be a BPU customer.
So, it's just really coming up with the firm, if we're going to keep the residency, maybe coming up with a firm justification for it so people can support it. At this point, you're like, is it always about taxes? You just want my taxes? Or what is the core reason of having this policy and implementing it?
Process wise, at some point, we need to have a full board discussion,
Full board work session.
But also, I think if there is to be an actual policy proposal, there's some details to work out and draft, whether it's applies to everyone or there's, cutoffs. Madam Chair, do you see that happening in all six of us in a work session, or maybe have a version of this with all six? And if there's some consensus about moving forward with drafting that, then this committee gets back together and tries to hammer out those detail. I'm trying to think through, process and timeline. This I don't see a scenario in which we are trying to take action before the UG is, even though they pushed it a couple of weeks, where, their next time of considering. There might be a work session or something like that between now and then, but.
And I don't know if you know, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I don't know why this was pushed out. Do you see it being pushed out further?
I believe it was pushed out to gather a bit more information.
Okay,
So I expect it to actually be heard on the 19th. That's
Okay.
what I've heard
of March.
of March.
And the good thing is we're a little bit more nimble with our scheduling, work session wise, whatever, and the team is always happy to accommodate committee schedules as needed. So,
Yeah, but I mean, also what is the effect of us being a month or two behind them? Really, other than they're recruiting
If I
or
have to
the
guess,
houses go up and fell quicker.
yes, and I don't think that I can read Mr. Ash's mind. But he's in the middle of a labor negotiation right now. And this is an issue that they have zero control over with respect to that labor negotiation. But the impact of this decision on that negotiation is enormous.
No, I agree. I'm not looking to be next year or
No, I'm
even
just, I mean,
by the second quarter or third quarter of this year. I think I'm saying if it takes us a month from our one working session to two working sessions, it's not the end of the world.
oh, no, I don't think
Yes.
that's the end of it
Okay,
at all.
okay.
Absolutely.
Not to cut Brett off, but asking Delaney about the time frame. If you saw the amount of questions they got asked to provide data for from their,
Sure.
that's why it was pushed.
And some were unanswered.
Like, you can only track so much.
Yeah, no, right.
It was extensive.
One other time consideration, and I don't think this should cause us to rush anything, but I would assume that there are folks who are at 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, 12 months on an extension right now.
Yeah.
And if I'm in their shoes, and I know this is a topic of conversation, I'd hate to see someone have to make a move
Yes.
3 weeks from now to have a policy a month later that said, well, you were the last one who ever had to do that. I mean, there's going to be a cutoff on that one way or another, but I don't want to drag forever for that either.
If we could get the board to agree that we shouldn't take any personnel action with regard to residency from a discipline perspective until after.
I think during the pendency of these discussions, I don't even know if we have the authority to do that in this
You
meeting.
do, and Brett and I have had that conversation.
Oh, good, okay.
It's, that's what we're doing, is we are tracking and following up, and we've communicated with people that, hey, we're providing forbearance right now. But just know that there could be a no change come and you'll be notified immediately that you're in violation. Because
But legitimately, the 6 months isn't listed in here, the extra 6 months. This is all at your discretion. And I know I've had that discussion with Bill before.
it's in the book, the discretion.
Right, and I'm not,
So, but to be
I want to
fair,
see the policy from 83 is what I want to see.
of that on myself. And so I called Brett and I had the conversation. And I said, Brett, really don't think we should just ignore all this. I think we should stay in, but can we at least delay whatever action has to happen until there is an outcome, be it there's a change or no change. And so we've told some folks already that, hey, there's forbearance on the implementation right now. However, it could come back that they don't change anything and you're gonna be notified immediately that you have to.
Yeah.
And there could be some people could not like that uncertainty. They could take it off.
Schedule wise, I know we've talked a little bit about March work session. unrelated to this, and I forget from my notes, were we talking at 5 o'clock next week or were we talking third Wednesday of March for that?
5 o'clock next week. And you're gonna get, a demonstration on,
I mean,
My Meter and how to navigate and use all that.
Yeah.
And then, it's laying upstairs, Chris just.
the open comment.
Yeah, that's right. We were
Yeah.
talking through
Yeah.
that with new folks coming on.
The comments.
Potentially, we've still got set aside that third Wednesday.
That's the day after St. Patrick's Day, so that is.
I mean,
For the ability to schedule something at another
this
time.
is,
Or I'll join.
should have brought Karen's, maybe she did. I don't think there's anybody that is in jeopardy here before.
I have someone
We've got
March the
one.
5th.
Before May,
Yeah.
is there anybody?
But he's been notified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a few people that are coming up. We always have at least one or so a month that Karen's dealing with.
I have a couple in May.
So to your point, I don't, are those people in May though eligible for,
They'll be, who would be granted that's when their year's up.
so they would be eligible for an extension?
Sure.
I have one in April that has already had one extension.
So I mean,
18th.
I'm just trying to think, yeah, when might that slot in? That's the next date in my mind, but we
And
can
that's the
push
slot.
beyond that.
It does.
March 18th,
Does that work for,
what time?
5. I think this is gonna be a lengthy discussion.
would be mindful of folks coming from day jobs?
30.
Can you pull off fives?
Yeah.
Okay.
Get to that. Okay, that's fine.
And so,
5:30 might work better for Stevie.
yeah, we can be here whenever you need or whatever you want to do.
I'm good either way. It's 5:30 easier for you.
Yeah, 5:30 is recording technically. Free.
We can do 5 minutes.
The board gets PTO too.
Let's try 5:30. We'll do something different.
Schedule your full board work. 5:30,
This issue.
this issue.
Okay, question, Mr. President. Do we want to try to take a stab at a policy or do we want to have that discussion first?
Open either way. I mean, it's possible we get to that work session and, you know, we don't have a majority who wants to move forward and
Will be better.
Well, I know that, but the framework around.
I think your framework is here. You just have to. check.
I would like to see the policy from 1983. I passed.
Policy books upstairs. I'll go look for it and see if I have it. And I'll look.
It's in the books we give you.
You want the original? Well,
She's talking
that's
about-
Jody for the original.
Jody.
1983
In a
policy.
cave.
It may be in a
Probably.
cave.
Is it on microfilm?
Jody typing. Jody will know.
Be at least a copy of the policy?
I think I documented.
I think- Go ahead.
Do you
Yeah.
have, outside of what you've given Dave, you have this personnel code before?
You're supposed to throw that away. It's called a retention policy. Get rid of that.
was it an onboarding?
Orientation, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's in my original stack.
So keep in mind when you read, the personnel code.
Yes.
Keep in mind that paragraph 3 just needs to come out. I think that the other interesting thing that's in here is what's defined as permanent residence, so.
It sure is. Took a look at that.
But outside of that, it pretty well captures what happens here with the notification, the HR process and what's required of them, and we'll see if we can find the 1983.
When you talk about drafting something ahead of that, do you mean having another session of this committee ahead of that
No,
or
I just didn't know
just
if you needed me to take a
The
stab at it. You know,
policy.
you know what I'm asking.
chair bringing a draft to the?
I think we should.
do a meeting or
No.
bring a draft?
I think we should bring a draft.
I like that. I mean, I think it helps. I mean, and that can be adjusted, right? If we, depending on feedback from other board members and when we see
But it's, I think,
action or no action from the UG.
do we need to talk about what's going to be in there
Yeah.
right now?
Well, no, but I guess to the extent you want things in that policy, you two send those to Angie. Can we let Angie know that we're doing this right now? And that way she'll get them to me.
So considerations on.
Although we're not breaking any,
Yeah, we're not a,
Send them to me.
oh yeah, you can send them.
we're not a quorum of the board.
We're not.
You're not a quorum board, you can send them to me. I can usually have I don't know how easy it is for Delaney to grab her, maybe you're easy, maybe, but if something else, we can get you this electronically too, if we want to start with.
Yeah.
So.
I think considerations would be, are we removing it from everyone? And if not, where do you draw that line within the chain of
I think I
command?
would just leave sort of blank at this point because we don't know.
Correct.
Sure. And
Well,
then,
I think that between us, because I think we have an idea, or you get to write it, so you can put whatever you want.
I'll ask you and you'd be like, you can write it. I mean, I'm really,
But what I'm
happy
saying
to
is,
write it.
I think at a minimum, the CEO will be excluded. But,
the general manager.
or the general manager. You already said you're not leaving and you're not moving,
Don't
so
do that.
you're good.
We know him a lot of times.
I think that's the minimum. I think we can all three sit here and agree to that. Now, where that line then moves,
Mhm.
yes, it should be open for the rest of the board.
the only other thing that popped up, and I don't know if this is something we need to look at or not, but when we were talking about within response time, is that are we tracking that in some way, right? That needs to be written in, or is it just hey, this is the expectation of the job. If that you get dinged because you're not meeting the expectation of the job, you just follow the normal process on that. And
60 minutes is in the handbook.
yeah,
I think you would be creating a consistency if that's what you,
60 minutes for.
That also in the CBA.
Emergency response.
it's not in the CBA. But what, the standard, what's not covered in this document's covered in that document. But it's the 60 minutes to respond.
I guess the
Which is
question-
only going to apply to certain people.
my preference on it would be that
I mean,
that's the standard and folks are responsible for meeting that, but you could go about writing it in such a way that, hey, we're gonna preemptively check that you're within 60 minutes like we do now, or you could just leave it to, hey, if you got called in, did you make it in 60 minutes? And if not, you're probably, I don't know what the process for that would be, but a documentation or write-up or.
Yeah.
They actually know that.
It's a 1 week.
Two things. One, so when overtime's called, all the times are recorded because it's pertinent to how we track system information, outage indices, different things. But there's always a manual and an electronic entry of, Jaron answered the phone at 12:07, and then we have the punch to know if I make it in the hour or not. The hour doesn't always happen. Somebody, you might run that list of overtime and you need somebody and they say, hey, I'll come in, but I'm a ways away. If you don't get anybody else, call me back. You exhaust the list, don't get anybody. You call Jaron back and he says, well, I can be there, but I'm here and I got to go home and change and then get there. And it ends up being an hour, 15 minutes or something. But it was, discussed ahead of time. So.
but those are
But that's all-
extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, those aren't.
That's right.
But that's also an emergency or residence requirement.
List every month to look at I-9s, but I pull a list of everybody's address, so that could just be part of the duty is to look to see if I see someone lives in Springfield, then I know they're not in the time frame, or,
Well,
something like.
well, we have to track address changes anyway, so there is more than just BPU addresses. Bonnie is the one that does the address changes because she has to connect the benefits with it. So we track them whenever anybody's moving. So if we have one that is outside the metro area, we would test it.
So maybe regardless, that,
Yeah.
that doesn't need to be specifically mentioned in policies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the 60 minutes is already in the handbook, and then however that would be
Yeah. And then,
administrated is.
yeah, and then we already have a
That's a
policy on
call it
keeping.
overtime.
your information updated too, so. it's
So
by-
in the policy, you may, if you want everybody to reside, because you don't have everybody's going to respond to an emergency, you may want to put 60 minutes in the policy itself. The residency policy.
And you may have some outliers, but I can't imagine anyone
Yeah.
who's gonna want to consistently drive that far to work on it. I mean, an hour is a long time. That's far.
To Dennis and the point Chase was asking about is, it does say this 60 minutes is to emergency. But I don't vary him up.
Yeah,
That would be.
it just makes it more consistent.
Which would obviously not be, affecting anyone currently employed since they're already under the current requirements.
Not the,
Do you have a reporting structure or chart? Other than like just the list?
Yeah, we do.
You can share,
Yeah.
please.
thanks to Rob Camp, we do.
All right, well, it sounds like, are you taking the lead on a first draft with input? Or are you delegating that to
Chase was
the
like,
junior policy committee member?
I'm happy to do it if you don't, it's up to you.
you don't ever care if I have to or not, so it doesn't matter. You wanted to rock, paper, scissors this?
You all are also, there's just two of you allowed to collaborate.
Sounds like it's.
Take the first crack.
And
Boom.
Chase is taking the first crack.
But we need it to
He wasn't born in
The board,
nineteen eighty-three.
Monday, the 14th or 15th, right?
So the work session would be the Wednesday, the 18th.
So we did by Friday, the before, right, to sit out for that. Doesn't really matter.
I mean,
Man, that gives you that Friday.
If you're not prepared to present that to the rest of to
a
the
must.
board at that, it's okay.
We just have to have the agenda ready by
Right,
Friday.
you don't have to have that document ready by
If you
then.
don't
Okay,
have the
perfect.
materials ready till Monday or Tuesday, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Do you
I'll have it
want
to you tomorrow.
to present this abbreviated version to the rest of the board? Like, or just give the,
I think I would err on the side of get it out to them.
early?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We can, I mean, I can craft an email to the other three and say, hey,
Like that.
the policy committee met. We've determined we're gonna have a work session on the 18th. Here's the presentation they have, and they're working on the documents for that meeting.
Yeah, I like that. That way you all don't have to repeat yourselves completely and we can,
Save some time.
give a little bit of homework and then hit the ground running. In theory,
Are you in law school yet?
I am not.
And we,
I don't need to be. We've already got two attorneys on this committee. I don't.
Makes too
Yeah.
much sense.
I'm still trying to get that 180 on these LSATs.
I have an update on that one, but
Hey,
I'll tell you.
Chase, we'll get you an electronic version. Actually, we get all of you of that policy as it is today, so you don't have to do everything.
A Word document
Yeah,
specifically, please. I don't want to convert a PDF.
No PDF. Get you
I don't think I can on my computer.
I was just gonna say,
Well, thank you for preparing everything and
yeah,
running through it.
thank you very much.
Sure. We appreciate the consideration because while it is a tough subject, it is a hurdle for us.
Is there anything else we need to discuss? Do we have to adjourn?
I think we normally do. I move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded, roll call please.
Parker,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
and Cook.
Aye.
It's adjourned.
Thank you.